It's also, there's a thing when an all-white country wants to stay all-white where people get very nervous of. If you have, let's say China. Like, China is Chinese people. We all agree that it's filled primarily with Chinese people. Yeah. There's people that live there from all walks of life, all over the world, but it's mostly Chinese people. If China had decided that they wanted to remain Chinese and stay Chinese, and that being Chinese was very important to what China is, no one would have a problem with that.
Yeah. When
a country like Poland does it, you're like, oh, those white people, they want to keep everybody out. They want it to be all white.
Yeah, and
because that's post-World War II. That's post-Aryan race talk. That's post-Nazi stuff. That's what people are legitimately freaked out about. That's the most recent stain in our history where we look back and say, wow, that was close. Evil almost won that one.
I think it also has to do with, the interesting thing is, Poland, Hungary, a lot of these Eastern Bloc countries, even though communism was extremely hostile to national identity, and really, took a lot of brutal measures to try to stamp it out because they wanted everybody to be a kind of new Soviet citizen,
Yeah.
Those countries that are over there now are much more comfortable sort of saying, yeah, Hungary is a country where Hungarians live and this is a Christian country and we want to keep it that way. Whereas all the countries that were on the other side of the Iron Curtain under the influence of the United States kind of had our traditional way of looking at these things kind of imposed on them. You know what I mean? Or they absorbed it through osmosis. I don't know if it's like a program or something, but we were the dominant sort of cultural and military force and everything else, political force. And so they kind of, absorbed the American openness and tolerance of all comers that we kind of had to have, as I said, in places where it really makes no sense at all. You have, you could at least say like with the British Empire or something, they colonized all these places. And so now like, those people in the former colonies, like they're moving to Britain, and you could, if like I don't really think of it this way. You could look at it that way though. If you look at a place like Ireland, they didn't colonize anybody. Ireland was a colony. They suffered terribly under the British for a long time, and yet it's very interesting that they were willing to be brutalized, be occupied, be starved. All of these things for centuries, to defend their little slice of the world where their people could work out their destiny among themselves, endured so much for that. And then, you get up to about the 1960s, 1970s, and, you can look it up. This isn't like a conspiracy theory. It's the first things that come up on Google if you look it up, that, Ireland is on track to be minority Irish by like 2070 or something like that. And it's like, I don't like that. People think of diversity as like every place on the planet should look like Jackson Heights in New York, and like then we're diverse. But to me, that's not diversity at all. Diversity is I go to Ireland and it's Irish. I go to China and it's Chinese. I go, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And turning it all into sort of a homogenized, like mixed, soup. I think when you put it in those terms, nobody really wants that, and people. But people get very uncomfortable, And in America, with immigration specifically, it's really hard to like, the fact that it's not like we're a Christian country in the sense of it being worked into our political culture so much or anything anymore, but still like the values that most people, even atheists and everybody else kind of, that inform their moral outlook are derived from that legacy of Christianity, And it could be very hard for somebody who is working from that moral base to come up with a reason that, look, imagine you're in a room and you're sitting at a table, and across from the table is a man, his wife, and their two kids, and they're from some poor part of the world, and they want to come, they want to be a part of your country. You're not going to be able to come up with a reason that justifies keeping them out. The only one that you could come up with is that when you open the door to that room, there's 65 million people standing in line outside, and you can't do that. But like on an individual level, like people really have a lot of trouble, and I think this is a credit to Americans in a lot of ways, even if it causes us a lot of confusion, that it is hard for us to turn people away like that, and I think to go back to like what you were originally talking about, I think the World War II story is a huge part of that. It's a huge part of why people. I think that some of the lessons we drew from that war were kind of maybe not the right ones to take, and that they have led us to the point where a culture like Ireland, who was not involved in the Second World War, never colonized anybody, feels like they don't have the moral right to say this is a country for the Irish. This is a little island where the Irish people get to live together and work out our destiny.
Well, here's the question. Is it coordinated immigration? Are they going there because there's job opportunities? Are they going there for a better way of life? Are they being told to go there? Like what's causing the mass immigration to Ireland?
It depends on the country. I mean, it's like to
Ireland in specific.
Yeah, Ireland. There's a lot of like Polish folks in Ireland, people from Eastern Europe who go there for work, Mm-hmm. That's the primary like source of migrants, but there's a lot of there are a lot of third world migrants or global south migrants there now, but a lot of Eastern Europeans come in there for work. Yeah, it kind of varies from country to country.
It's interesting because I do agree that it's cool that you go to places and they're uniquely, like I love Scotland. You go to Scotland, it's uniquely Scottish. You go to places, you get to take part in their way of life, like to see the world through their culture and the way they view things. It's interesting. But I also love the melting pot of America. I love it. And I come from immigrants. My grandparents came here during the early parts of the 1900s. And so I'm thankful that they were courageous enough, or their parents were courageous enough to get on a fucking boat before YouTube. No idea what was going on over here. It was just promises and hopes, and try to carve out a life. And that's where I came from. So it would be insanely hypocritical of me to deny someone who came from another country an opportunity to partake in this place. But I also think that there's